To start. Welcome everyone to our event today. Thank you very much for joining us. We're really excited to have our network and also new colleagues and like-minded souls joining us today. We'll be exploring today how cultural art forms.
Ini kita akan mendalami tentang bagaimana
формы искусства вносят.
ibihangano bijyanye n'uburyo bishobora guhindura sosiyete. Amazina yanjye nitwa Sara.
Vibes, Julie, and we're very grateful for you being here. But if you do need to drop out, then that's completely understandable. Dewey is one of our amazing youth researchers and a member of our youth advisory board. So welcome, Dewey.
Thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Jui Adhikari, and I am a youth researcher with Mobile Arts for Peace here in Nepal. So before we get started, please do share your name and the country, place where you are joining from in the chat box, as we are the global community today. So now I hand over to Sarah to take us through some of the housekeeping tips for today.
Yep, thank you so much, Dewey. Before we dive right into our webinar today, just a few housekeeping reminders for you. So please mute your microphone. They should already be muted, but if not, please keep them muted. We will definitely want to hear from you via Zoom chat, and if you want to engage in the question and answer opportunities, you can also pop onto screen or speak through audio. But whilst the presentations are happening, please keep them muted. This session is being recorded, as you've seen, and screenshots will be being taken periodically. So if you're not comfortable with that, by all means, turn off your cameras, and there's no need to place your names in the Zoom box. However, having said that, we do love seeing our network on camera as well. So if you're comfortable, please do keep those open. As I mentioned, we are now recording, and I hope you've seen that message. So by participating, we are taking on board your consent to be part of today's webinar, and for us to potentially put the webinar up on our YouTube channel, just so you're aware. The other aspect to let you know about is interpretation. So please.
Если вы еще не выбрали
interpretation channels, huh?
Aho basobanurira
and pick the language that you require. Thank you very much to our interpreters who are in those rooms. It's a really important part of the MAP project that we seek to use as many languages as we have in our project. The other point to mention is that throughout the event, Anna and Vina will be looking for questions that you might be raising up in the chat, and we will certainly be collecting those, and when we have the Q&A sessions at the end of our presentations, we'll be bringing those in. So do feel free to use the Zoom chat as you need to. Any IT issues, our wonderful co-Is, Kula, who you can see down in the bottom of your screen there, alongside Kirili, will be seeking to respond to any support issues. So thank you very much to them as well. If we aren't able to get to your questions, we do plan to write a blog which will go up on our website afterwards, and so hopefully we'll endeavour to answer all questions through that space if we don't have time today. Another point just to share with everyone is these are our ways to connect. You can reach us via the MAP email. We have our website, which is currently undergoing some development. So bear with us if there's a few glitches at present, but we hope very much in around about a month's time to have a largely almost there functional website. We've also just launched our first newsletter, and you can subscribe from our website if you're not already on that link. As it's our first one, we really welcome any feedback. So if there's types of content that you would like to see that's useful for yourself or your organization, please let us know. And there's our Twitter and hashtag. Just a final thank you to our funders. That's the Arts and Humanities Research Council and the Global Challenges Research Fund here in the UK. And I now hand over to Dewey, who's going to introduce our agenda, our delicious menu for you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So looking at the agenda for today, we have an overview of mobile ads for peace. We also have 3 different projects from Nepal, Rwanda, and Kyrgyzstan, which is Deoda Folklore and Social Transformation from Nepal, One Drum per Girl from Rwanda, The Magic of Theatre from Kyrgyzstan. We are also open to the dialogue from 3 different projects where we will be finding the similarities and differences across the project. And at the end, we will be celebrating the art forms and also our closing remarks. So yeah. I would also like to invite those of us on Twitter to use the today's hashtag, which is hashtag Everyday Peace Building. And now we would like to start. So here we have, so to give the overview of our mobile ads for peace, we have Professor Ananda Brit. She is the principal investigator of mobile ads for peace. She's a professor in
Peace, Professor Ananda Brit. Beliau adalah
Мира, мы хотели бы дать слово.
City of United Kingdom ko चाहिँ
Ananda, mwakoze cyane mwese barimo.
Just give an overview of Mobile Arts for Peace and to share with you our pathways thus far in implementing our project. We're about 3 years in now to a 4-year project. So the aim and objectives of MAP is to provide a comparative approach on the use of interdisciplinary arts-based practices for peace building in our 4 country partners by influencing curricula and approaches to working with in and out of school youth, and also creating structures and modes of communication between youth and policymakers from the local to the global. So just to note, in this webinar today, we'll really be focusing on the use of arts-based forms and exploring how have arts-based methods been used to create this kind of 2-way form of communication. Next. To date, we've worked through phase 1. So initially in phase 1, we worked alongside children and young people, artists, educators, civil society workers, decision makers to explore how and why particular cultural forms might be adapted for dialogic purposes. We then developed a manual or toolkit and worked alongside our stakeholders to then embed our methodology into primarily MAP clubs, in which we were working with youth researchers who then developed and delivered 32 youth-led research projects. So based on the findings of the young people, we then launched 8 medium grant projects, and you'll hear about 3 of those today, and 2 large grant projects. So the large grant projects are primarily responsible for the monitoring and evaluation and learning alongside our youth researchers and youth advisory board members. Slide. To date, we've worked with over 28,000 participants, linked with 160 partner organizations, 520 engagement activities were delivered, and we produced 150 artistic outputs to date. Slide. So in terms of how we've been informing curriculum, it's been really important to the MAP approach to work with local approaches to inform curriculum. Also to develop youth leadership through the MAP researcher clubs and networking with cultural organizations. In terms of thinking about pathways to impact, we've been working alongside HEI structures, and some examples like in Rwanda, we've actually been developing continuing professional development programs to embed the MAP approach into higher education structures. Alongside working with child forums in Indonesia to guide the national structures in terms of the child forums. Slide.
Oh, sorry, Amanda, we've got a little bit of a sticky slide.
No glitch. That's fine. Just to note, there's another project that we've worked that has worked alongside the Network Plus project, which is Map at Home. So that project was funded by UKRI Newton Fund, and that project's entitled Map at Home, and it's providing psychosocial support through the arts in Rwanda. So in that project, we've been working closely with
Kami bekerja sama.
Это в Руанде и метод.
प्रमाणित आधारित डेटाहरू सङ्कलन गर्ने
as well.
I'm just going to pop out for a minute, pop back in, and hopefully we should be back.
I can speak without the slides if there's trouble with that as well. So I'll just kind of continue a little bit. Slide. In terms of informing policy, we've been working quite closely at the local level to work alongside decision makers, and also to consider what is the need that the MAP approach could fulfill. So as an example, in Nepal, there is a mandate to work alongside child clubs so that the local curriculum can be informed with and by children. And in many ways, MAP has been working alongside the child clubs to make sure that that particular initiative comes to fruition. Also working alongside local and cultural approaches to healing, working alongside healthcare providers. And slide. So in terms of some of the challenges and opportunities to date, that there has been a gender dimension to issues and problems. And we're exploring that further, particularly in terms of thinking about interventions within the life cycle of gender-based violence and social violence. And thinking about interventions within the lives of daughters to mothers, girls to women, vice versa. We've also needed to engage with high-level officials with arts-based methods, and sometimes there can be a reluctance in terms of having policymakers work with arts-based approaches and or to explore how youth serve as experts and leaders within that platform. We consider that there's a sweet spot between the formal and non-formal modes of communication and policy informing structures. And in many cases to date, what has been quite successful is having events in which the young people share the issues, needs, solutions through performances, videos, and conversations with policymakers and decision makers alongside delivering policy briefs. And slide.
Ah, very interesting today. Nope, this one's quite insistent that it wants you to.
That's fine. I will actually close with the challenges and opportunities, and just to thank all of you for attending and to thank our speakers today for sharing their journey in terms of delivering their projects. And again, really looking forward to hearing more about how the particular cultural forms have been used in relationship to creating this two-way form of dialogue between children and young people and decision makers. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you so much to Ananda as our principal investigator on the MAP project. So I'll now pass over to Dewey to introduce the first of our projects that you'll be hearing from today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So now we have one of our two.
Jadi ada salah satu
Это новая
परियोजना छ न्यू कमिसन परियोजना भन्छ
project yo muri Nepal.
The leading organization here is the University for Creative Arts, UCA, and the local partner organization is the Volunteer and Research Foundation in Nepal. The presenters for today is Dr. Simon Dancy, Dila Dutt Pant, and Nur Badur Saud. So over to you.
Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Can we move to the next slide, please? So first of all, my thanks to Ananda for commissioning this project, and also my thanks to the funders as well. My work really is focused on looking at themes that Ananda's been talking about, which is around how culture and art can shape policy, but also how they can construct different social imaginaries for people and challenge power. So I think this particular project, and I should say this, we're right at the beginning of this project. It's only been running for 3-4 months. So what you're getting at the moment is a snapshot of a project that is in progress. And the project is looking at the themes around young people. It's looking particularly at the Dura culture in Nepal, and it's exploring what kind of social structures that are in place there, what kinds of themes are being explored by young people involved in this particular art form. But also it's exploring how we can then leverage that to influence policymakers. The project kicked off in Kathmandu about 2 months ago with quite a large scale policy artist academic meeting, which spanned over 3-4 hours, exploring these initial themes. And I think what came out quite strongly was the power that Dura actually has within Nepal, and particularly that it gives voice to people who are often marginalized. And one of the other themes that came out, we spent a whole week as an inception visit in Kathmandu, was the empowering nature of the art form, particularly for women, and particularly in challenging patriarchal social structures in a quite traditional culture. So it was very interesting to see how this worked. And my colleagues who will be presenting after me will start to show you the art form.
saya akan menampilkan pengguna konten yang jadi ada tema majelis di sini. Jadi sekarang kita akan lanjut dengan
будем проводить интервью.
जसमा चाहिँ यी
So I'm really interested today to hear from other people who have already had that journey, and MAP has had some fantastic success stories in that way as well. I'm also trying to bring a lot of my research previously has looked at areas like Colombia and Brazil and Bangladesh. And I'm trying to also bring the learning from those research projects as well to try and understand how we can move from understanding how this particular form works in Nepal, whom it works with, and how we can use it to leverage policymakers. Next slide, please.
Oh, very interesting, Simon. Yeah, for whatever reason today, the slides are playing with me.
Well, I'm going to hand over to my colleague who's a PhD researcher at the University of the Creative Arts, where I'm based as well. And the next slide, even if it doesn't come up, you can talk about a little bit about what Dura folklore actually is, what it looks like, what it involves. I'll hand over to Na, if you could do that, please.
Thank you. Welcome, Na.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Simon. In the next slide, I will be talking about briefly what Devda is, what the major focus of our study. This is one form of art that is particularly celebrated in the far and midwestern part of Nepal, including the Indian territory as well. So we have a short video about that Devda, so that instead of talking about the background and then what actually it is, I would request to Sarah to play the video, then it would say more about this. So particularly, you can see like one photo there. So this is how the Devda is played typically, but there are different forms as well within the broader Devda framework as well. But we will be trying to find out how the different differentiate within a Devda and then the broader framework of Devda works, especially in order to promote the social harmony and social transformation in a community. There are like different forms and times and that are celebrated in throughout the year, but only the thing Devda is celebrated many different occasions except one death rituals. We don't follow like a Devda celebrate at that time, but beside that, whatever the celebration, like festivals, marriages, and other types of gathering, then Devda is the common platform to celebrate the people there. So, Sarah, could you please play the video, and then later on the next section will be led by our colleague Dila later on.
Sure.
It's short one. It's short, not like about.
Yep, no problem. I'm going to have to just come in and out, I think, a little bit, because for whatever reason today, the slides aren't working. Let's get to this slide. Here we are. Okay, so just bear with me. Here we go. Ta-da. Okay. So I'm just going to stay on this screen. So apologies if you have all the slides coming up, but I think that's going to make our job easier with moving. So here we go. Enjoy this fabulous video. This is actually a world premiere, I think now. I think you've undersold it. So hopefully, here we go.
Devda is one of the principal folkloric heritages of westernmost part of Nepal, which has been orally transmitted from generation to generation. Also known as Devda Khel, Devda is a song which is performed as a dance in a circular chorus. It is a kind of impromptu rhythmic poetry by two leading singers in a chorus, in which one asks the question and the other responds with counter question. Such a question answer could take place between singers of the same sex or the opposite, and it may continue for hours and sometimes even for days. Known as a living culture of far and midwestern Nepal, Devda Khel is performed on almost all happy occasions and festivals as the key social event. The range of thematic issues reflected in Devda songs is quite vast, including from mythology, culture, art, satire, love and romance, politics and societal issues, among others. In its limited sense, Devda is generally a question and counter question chorus performance divided into two parts. But in wider sense,
bagian bertanya dan menjawab.
Это вот
जुन चाहिँ जसमा चाहिँ
उदाहरण limited scope
Kevli, Thamari, Fag, and many more. Devda has been one of the strong agencies of social cohesion, social transformation, language and life that ultimately contributes to mitigating the potential social grievances and conflicts, bringing all social groups together.
Sorry if you have missed the somewhere sound there. I think it's a video is clear, but maybe some technical issue. This is the part of our activity we did last month, and now next section, how Devda does its works through the communication and social change. Our colleague Dila will go for the next one. Dila, please.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Nepal. The earlier two colleagues have shed light on what, where, and how Devda culture is connected with life. I think I'll be very briefly sharing with you the agencies of communication and how that is contributing to social change. As the heart of Devda is openness, as it's written in this slide. Devda opens arms for almost everyone. There is no restriction on the basis of the sex, caste, any age, even time, who comes faster, who comes earlier, or who leaves earlier, and other social stratum based restrictions. Everyone can join anytime, irrespective of. That is one of the reasons perhaps Devda has been so popular, and everyone is given equal opportunity. So any folklore or any piece of culture that opens the door, any avenue for anyone so freely, so cordially, perhaps is the best pieces of the culture to unite the society. I think that is one of the main reasons why Devda has been one of the life's part. Then the second is there is no hierarchy even in its formation. If you can see, many cultures generally have their folklores that either are scattered in their forms, in their performances, but you will see every participants and the singer in a whole round of circle. So this also has a significance in its meaning, conveyance, that everyone has the equal right to see the another person participating in the same game, same performance. So a circle has no backward, no front, a forward side of the performance. So Devda thus invites equal opportunity, and which ultimately creates another momentum.
memberikan momen
для вас такую возможность.
र त्यसको साथसाथै
that even a single pronoun, which is equal to you in English, has 5 different categories. We start from ta to junior, tapai, timi to contemporary, then tapai to a little senior, hazur to respected elderly, and mausuf to the kingly people. So these are 5 different hierarchical address of the single pronoun called you in English. But in Devda, if you see, this has given a great avenue for the singers to address without any hierarchies, meaning that in Devda circle, like in many poetry, we enjoy that freedom. You can straight away address the counterpart irrespective of his or her social belonging, the position, the personality. There could be a contemporary equal addressing, like English you, no hierarchy. So the language aspect also gives you an ample opportunity in this performance, which is also, I think, a cause of social unification, because you feel happy to talk to a so-called elite in the village in the same pronominal choice that you have liked to address on different occasions. So this is third reason. Then to sum it up, communication for social issues is the purpose of Devda. Basically, the issues of caste, violence against women. Sadly, we could not perhaps show you the video in full stress because of the technical glitch there. But if you looked at one of the subtitles there, you could have seen that the song goes shocking. It is that you gamble by even selling your wife's ornaments, was the statement there. That shows how the societal issue in particular village looks like. That male counterparts were so much engaged in gambling, playing cards the whole day, even at the cost of their family's jewelry. So that is how the social communication against the violence, social behaviors, the collective behaviors of the society, the caste discrimination, and many other communications are seen in these pieces of the Devda songs. Then the second point obviously has been the entertainment, because there were no entertainment means available. And from long time of history, there have been discrimination, depression, and suppression to these parts of the Nepalese territory. The mid and far western region are least developed in this country among two other two provinces. Then entertainment was one of the reasons why Devda has got so popular. The third thing I think would be a pleasure and ecstasy, any celebration, the mood of the society, the victory, the birth, the success. Ecstatic moods were celebrated in form of Devda. You can see the dresses. In other forms of the Devda culture, you can see some religious celebrations, the victorious celebration called a Vua, and many others. That's how the third purpose of this communication has been pleasure and communication of the ecstatic mood of the society. So on the thematic issues, you have heard so many things on the video itself: economy, love and romance, politics, social campaigns, especially to create the social awareness, has been one of the essential forms lately when we talk about the use of Devda song in the social communication. So I think in brief, I conclude here. Maybe later in the Q&A session, I may come up again. Thank you once all to you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much from the project team. This is Dr. Simon Dancy, Dilla Pant and Nabado Saud contacts and Twitter and Twitter names if you need to get in touch with them. We would now like to open up to any questions from anybody participating. So if perhaps we'll start if there's anybody that wants to come online and ask your question directly, please raise your hand, your little electronic hand, because we won't see
silakan.
that wants to ask a question on the art form, on what you've watched and what you've heard, then please jump in now. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll move to any questions or indeed reflections that may have come up in the chat. So here I call on my wonderful colleagues. Vina, did we have any questions for the Dauda project team?
Hi, Sarah. Yes, thank you for presenter today for the first presentation. There is one question from Ananda. So it's a beautiful video, first of all. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing with us. And Ananda asked about, could you please say more about how Dauda has been used to communicate the issues or the needs of children and young people with decision makers? And what are the particular issues that have emerged? And also the last question is, has there been any response from the community members about these particular adaptations of form? Thank you. Over to you.
I think I'll take maybe the first part of that and then hand to my colleague. And I think, as we've said, we're right at the start of our project. And I think what we did at the start of our project was to bring policymakers, doula practitioners, and academics together to actually talk about what doula meant to the community, to talk about what very little academic work was already out there around the area. I think something that came through quite strongly from Dilla's talk is this is a very under-researched area, and we're at the beginning of trying to both capture the form and the social structures within the form. We're also at the beginning of the two parts of that question, really, which is about how we how it works with the voices of young people and how it works with policymakers. We're in the process of doing that. So I don't have a direct answer for you yet, in that we have already brought policymakers and practitioners together and captured what that meant. The next part of our work is to really understand much more about the hidden structures within doula, the hidden sort of power balances between doula as well, and then how we can work with people to enable their voices to reach policymakers. So I haven't answered your question properly at all, because what I'm actually saying is we're in the process of doing that. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dilla, now?
Yeah, Simon, thank you. I think that's a good premise, as you've said. The question by Ananda is the heart of what we are willing to achieve at the end. Sadly, I must acknowledge, as a practitioner and as a first member of this community, there hasn't been much written literature on this topic as yet. The universities, hardly anyone has written any dissertation on this. If there is any, maybe there are just a handful, but on the linguistic side, maybe of the different academic purposes only available. So the socio-cultural impacts are yet to be explored. And with your question, we have seen some changes happening about the engagement of the young people's agenda. For example, the drug abuse is one of the critical social issues in the bordering areas. For your information, the far western part and some part of the Midwest shares the border with India, which is an open border. There's no such a river, or there is no such tight international border security system in place. So anyone can just go and come across. So in that respect, there have been a transit point for the drug abusers in these Tarai cities, and I have seen some Deuda competitions being held lately by social groups to create awareness on the drugs and the impacts of such abuse. So we have to also look into these phenomena, whether they are sporadic or systemic, whether the local governments are taking these things so seriously, or whether they have any plans further. This is yet to be explored. But sadly, I must again acknowledge that young people do not seem to be much connected with this living culture. There has been a huge gap between the earlier generation and the second generation. If you see the earlier video, you will hardly see youngsters in the chorus. That still is a significantly conveying a message that people either feel kind of hesitating themselves to put into the classical some old things, primitive things. I don't know, this may be a social scientist's work research area too. In regards to children's, hardly ever, I think, in the classrooms, sometimes in the Fridays in schools, some people, some teachers use this form as the entertainment and sometimes as a form of learning, but that hasn't been so systematic yet. So we'll have to also look into these areas, Ananda, for your question. The second question was about the gender justices and other many forms of injustices that exist in, and how have you accounted for these areas. So yes, in as we move on with the research, maybe there are some areas, the outlook of the research questions will also look into these things, whether there has been any communication of the gender justice and other discriminatory practices have been addressed through Deuda, and has there been any impact, if any. We'll be looking into these. There are some noticeable and on the surface, good evidence is already available that there is some good practices to mitigate such injustices, at least to voice up, if not mitigation. Thank you for the second question. I think I should stop if there is no more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dilla, for such a rich and reflective response. That's great to hear from the...
There is one more, I think, regarding the number of participants in the Deuda.
Yep, if we can have a quick response to that, and what we'll do is we've got the full dialogue session at the end.
Yes,
we can perhaps
like
pick up on
Caroline's question there. It's like, I think there is not fixed number of participants. It can, like a very 5 people, 10 people can start, even sometimes small group, and then it can go to up to hundreds and more than that, 1,000 even. So it depends upon how large gathering is there. So the number is not fixed yet, yeah.
Yes, exactly. As much as many people as feel comfortable in the space available.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to break into 2 because of the space that is not available to accommodate all, and also for communicating your voice up to all, because one singer loudly announces a piece of song which has to be reached to everyone's ear to repeat. So this is space and the management issue. Otherwise, anyone can join as the space is available. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, lovely. Great question on the number. That sounds quite something visually, let alone to hear. If there were 1,000 people engaged in Deuda, that sounds phenomenal. So we will have an opportunity in a whole dialogue session after we've seen the 3 projects. So do, if you still have questions, keep those in mind. And Veena, please keep a track if we haven't answered any that we can bring up at that point as well. The video is up on our YouTube site, but also I think Kula might be dropping into the chat the link so that you've got that directly as well to watch in your own time. So we'll now move on to hearing about our next project, and which is one of our medium grant projects in Rwanda. It's the Gira Ngoma One Drum Per Girl project. And the MAP project's partnering with the Women Cultural Centre. And today we welcome Kiki, who's the principal investigator of this phenomenal project. So welcome, Kiki.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's good to see you.
To see you all. So I'm very thrilled to present this project. Giringoma in Kinyarwanda, it means most of the time we wish, when you meet with people, you wish them wealth, you wish them health, you wish them, most of the time to women, they wish children, they wish her to have a husband. So Giringoma, we wish them to have drum, which means in Kinyarwanda also power. So we wish these little girls to have power and to take leadership in the cultural center, in the cultural sector. So I think that the work we are doing, for me, it's having culture being under reconstruction and having girls and women taking the lead and the work. I remember one time someone asked me if I wanted to change our culture. And I remember saying, no, we don't want that. But now I'm claiming that, I'm taking ownership of that. I think that after 20 years working in this sector as a woman, because since I've invaded a space that was exclusively reserved to men, which is drumming, I am most of the time referred to as a woman more than an artist. So as a woman, I felt really uncomfortable with a culture that doesn't represent me, and that has many rules and taboos about women. And then in our culture, in our contemporary society now, we have a very strong gender policy where women and girls are encouraged to do anything they want, but still it collides with the culture of the country, which doesn't allow women finally to do many things. So there is, and for many years I've been expecting someone else to change the culture. I didn't feel that I was the one that has to do that. And finally, this is what I'm realizing, that we have to change that culture, and it's our work. So I love very much these pictures of some of the 250 girls who attended the first session of our festival in Gomansha. They have skills in their hands that are very new to them. They're being initiated to the warrior dance, which is only for men and for young men and adult men. And these are the first ones to experience this, and they're really being empowered and enjoying that. And yes, next slide, please. Yeah. So Giringoma, really our main objective, as we stated up in our application, is really ensuring that the Rwandan National Curriculum Framework in music, dance, and drama is gender responsive. So now we are invading 10 schools. The project started in 2019 and was very timid, very shy, and now is becoming more and more structured. So we are working in 10 schools, and Machazo is one of our very promising school, where even the director is very committed. And we work in 10 schools, as I said, in the district of Huye, in the southern province of Rwanda, and in the district of Gisagara. We are offering workshops in the drumming, in the warrior dance, in juggling, in singing, and in poetry. And yes, what it means, I mean, culture as to provoke change, or social change, but I think also there are also culture itself has to change, because a culture can also be perpetuating some injustice. And we have this shield, the drumming sticks, the ankle bells, and the spears, and those are the tools for men, not for women. So it means that we invade those arts or spaces of exclusion, and we transform them in spaces of inclusion that respect freedom of expression. For me, even when we started the project 20 years ago, it was not a gender project. It was not about gender. It was about artists who want to express themselves. So for me, what is more precious in this is allowing these girls to express themselves freely. And at the same time, I am aware that it is about respecting women's cultural rights. And in this particular project Giringoma, one drum per girl, we are making sure that the girls, they have easy access to cultural opportunities or spaces. Yeah. So these are the workshops we are offering. And next slide, please. Yes, and we have, I think it is important that the culture is made by women for women. And because we have been experiencing a culture that was made by men for women. And now I'm really proud that we have this wonderful team of women drummers, the first evers. They're not only drummers, now they are pioneers, and now they're trainers, and they are role models for these young girls, which in many interviews we have done with them, most of the time when we ask them what they want to do when they will become, when they grow up, they say, I want to be a drummer, because this concept now is new and is concrete, and it means a lot in the sense that you can do everything, that there is no taboo anymore. So the change that is being made in our own culture is really proving to the kids that there are no more barriers, and maybe the ones you give to yourself, but if there are any, we are the ones to break them. And so we have those. For me, this is the how and who and what. We have up to now, we have had 64 training sessions in those 10 schools, and that are benefiting over 250 girls. With this project, we were able to cover some training materials only for 250 girls, but we are training over 600 girls in the schools, and we hope that we will keep.
Такое обучение.
हुँदै जान्छ बढ्दै जान्छ भन्ने
On the 6th of May, we had our first festival, and I'll go back to the first one. Yes, not the first. Yes, and we have 10 teachers in the 10 schools that now are pairing with the trainers in delivering the workshops. And like maybe, and we have that in collaboration with the 10 teachers, the workshop themselves, they will be more structured, and eventually a curriculum, we can develop some training methodologies, have pedagogic tools to make this more formal and able to scale up to different schools in the country. Next slide, please. Yes, of course, it is important. Now we launched through this project, through MAP, we have launched the dialogue with policymakers. And there is no single event in Huye, in Butare, that is happening without the girls drumming. We are not invited anymore to drum, it's only the girls, and this makes us so proud. So we have, there have been meeting and interacting with the policymakers. On the 8th of March, we have the executive secretary of Ngoma sectors. We have the vice mayor who was present and drummed with them. For me, this means more than speech, because on the 6th May, our festival, we have a bunch also of local authorities who are there, seeing that girls have talent, and we were all so proud, very proud. Next slide, please. Yes. The festival was magic. I mean, it was short. We had a one day when we have to meet all the 250 girls in one day and perform together in the morning and then perform together in the afternoon. It went quite well, even though somehow it was chaotic.
Было хаотично, но
like a feeling
recognition, joy, hope, opportunities, facing talents of the girls, and yeah, that's something that is becoming very concrete and changing the perceptions of the girls about themselves and the perception of the society about women. Yes, next slide, please. Yes. The challenges for these specific projects will be just the limited teaching materials. It means that we have now, for the drums, we have 100 drums, which I'm very proud of having them, but we have 250 girls that attended the festival, and we have 600 that we are training. So having them share a drum, this is also very good. But we also heard from the parents, from the local authorities, that they also saw that the materials were limited, and promise that eventually for the future they will also help increase those materials, from the directors of the schools, from parents who were promising to buy them the drumming sticks. And yes, one day of the festival to meet, connect, and work together seems really too short, even though we felt lucky to have that day. And I have to acknowledge that also we are struggling to work on the visibility and of the project and the communication. So the learning that is being there is that changing culture is possible, is necessary and possible. And it has to reconcile with the realities. I mean, to adjust with the realities. The contemporary times we are in, women has to have a conducive environment and to have a culture that supports their empowerment and growth and flourishings. But this takes time, so it's not granted. We have not achieved this, but we hope that we will keep doing this until it takes roots, very roots in the society, and we don't have anymore to fight for that until it is a status quo. This is it. This is the new goals for the new culture, for the new Rwanda. So I'm very proud of having the honor of contributing to the making of a culture, the culture we want for the women we want and the girls.
Wonderful, Kiki. Thank you so much. I was really struck by your reflection that embodying local officials, embodying the art form means so much more than speech. So I think that's really powerful. And we'll now get an opportunity to watch a very short video clip, which actually shows the festival on the 6th of May that Kiki was talking about. So fingers crossed, if everyone could cross their fingers, And let's see if this now plays. The link to the URL will also be dropped in the chat. So here we go, hopefully.
Hi, Sarah. Sorry, the voice is not very clear. Would you like me to help sharing the video?
Oh.
It seems there's a problem with
Sorry, I think Vina was just saying that apparently the sound might not be clear for some of you. It's clear this end, but if we'd like to continue where we are, is the sound good? Can I get some thumbs up if you can hear it and it's all going fine?
There's a suggestion to add the link to the chat so people could listen and potentially play the video independently as well. Kula stated that she added it earlier.
Perfect. So are some people just getting the image and not the sound? That's, yeah.
And Kula's just added the link again in the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Would you like me to continue with it, or should we pause here and allow people to catch up at another time? What is there a preference? I think it also might be slightly dependent on individuals' internet connections as to whether it's coming through fully. Well, what we might...
Maybe, sorry to interrupt, maybe just play the last minute, and for those who want to watch it independently and can do that, they can run the video independently as well.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, so I'll catch up from here. It really is worth watching. Apologies if you're not able to see it, but let's watch this final bit. Brilliant. And I think that last statement, Kiki, is so important. The culture we want for the women we want. That's really something. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll open up to any question for Kiki and her project and or indeed reflections. So I wonder if anyone wants to speak and be seen on camera, please put your electronic hand up. Otherwise, we'll move over to Vina, who's been checking in the Zoom chat. Vina, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Kiki, for your amazing presentations and sharing about project. I will echoing Umuduri saying that it's a beautiful thing. It is, and we look forward to seeing this practice more. And I think there's one question from Ananda, and I think Kiki has addressed some of the question. So maybe if Kiki wants to add more, the question is around that. Can you please say more about the use of warrior dance, poetry, or drumming to express issues and the needs of girls or women, alongside the cultural rights or changes, and through the reconstructions of culture, through the practice or representations of girls and women to engage with these art forms. So yeah, please,
Yes,
Kiki.
thank you, Ananda. I think just seeing women invading spaces where they're excluded for me is the main change that we are making. And we have women representations, girls representation in the cultural and some artistic areas. And through the songs, for example, this the last 3 months, they've learned a song, our song that is called I Have a Drum. For me, I have power, I take leadership, I count, you know, these are the lyrics of the songs, and I will achieve my dreams. And this is about the same old dream of equality that we all want, and that we are achieving in the drumming arena, in the warrior, and the warrior dance, which is not forbidden for women, but which is reserved to men. This is a male thing, is all about excellence. It's about bravery. It's about self-pride. And those values, we rarely get a chance to experiment that. And granting the country with such young warriors, female, that's at the translation of the leadership of the country. I think we feel represented, the girls feel valued, they count, and having this platform, which is the festival, to interact with the authorities, and they get the support and the approval of their parents, of the directors, of the local authorities, of their trainers, this sense of pride and joy. There was a very deep sense of pride that day, and everyone was proud of these girls. They were proud of themselves, and I think this is for me and without saying it, we are changing. We're changing things, and I think the advisor to the mayor who spoke at the last, we didn't have a chance to translate yet, he said that I saw Ngomasha making progress step by step, and it's really a joy to see them in schools, because even if we did not understand at the very beginning, and even there are still people who don't accept this, but change is necessary, change is important in every society, and we can't keep girls away from that. So it was very good for the girls, for us, for the women, to hear him as a leader, as a man, to recognize that things has to change, and we are understanding that the future has to be better, and these are the futures. So if in that sense, even the girls were the better ambassadors we have ever had as female drummers in our struggle.
Amazing. Thank you, Kiki. And something we might not have time to address in this conversation would be about the visibility that you noted, because these are obviously such powerful images and videos. So thinking about the visibility and then the take up at national level to potentially integrate it into the curriculum, because there had been a program of 1 piano per school, but how amazing would it be for there to be, 100 drums per school, or considering how that notion of music might change with this project as well. So thank you so much, Kiki.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you indeed. And I guess from one type of magic to another type of magic, we're now going to move on to hearing from our third project today, which is
project ketiga,
Kyrgyzstan.
Rescue partner
about how their work with theatre in Kyrgyzstan can affect social change in their country. Over to you both.
Hello everyone. My name is Lili. I'm representing my father, the state director and the PI of this project, Nurlan Asanbekov. And sorry for my sleepy voice. It's early morning in the US where I study. So a couple of words about our project. So the main idea, the main aim of the Magic of Theater was to see how theater can change uh, the human principles of young children and young adults, especially now when in the mid of spring we had we have a collaboration right now with the school number 43 in Jangajer village, which is near Bishkek, and it's the school with children from disadvantaged families who struggle. And so the thing that we noticed that these children are particularly interested in theater, and they are really involved fully into the process of stagecraft and backstage working. And in fact, they will have a first show in it will be I guess it will be this week, or yes, my dad told me it will be tomorrow actually. So so our approach to theater, theater aesthetics in Kyrgyzstan, they refer to the very ancient times when the epic story telling tradition was developing. We have Kyrgyz culture has more than 40 epic stories. One of the greatest is Manas. Probably you've heard of it because it's an intangible heritage list of UNESCO as the largest epic story in the world. You can see the image from the working process in the school. They're working on the performance stagecraft Taktike, which is based on an epic story of the telling about the hunter whose greed actually led him to his failure, and it's basically the story about how to not to harm nature and how to be in a balanced relations with nature. So could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So we want to create the communication among parents and children by the art of theater, and we want the children's voice to be heard because unfortunately in Kyrgyzstan, children sometimes are like they can be heard because it's people think that children are too little to have opinion about anything, and young adults are also involved in this project. What else? Yeah, so we want to understand actually how theater will change the future of each child. Maybe some of them will discover their hidden talent of stage crafting or scenario writing or acting as well. For example, in this, my dad sent me some videos from backstage process, and these kids in the school in Jangajer are really talented. Yes, and we will be making the survey among parents and among children as well. And of course, we will survey the audience how they think that the magic of theater, this project will invite social change in our country. how the art of theater will help to evolve the level of humanity in our society. Could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So here are two videos from the backstage process. The first one is from, on the left side, is from Bishkek, one of the Bishkek groups. And it's a very short video of backstage process. And could we please watch the video if that's possible?
Wonderful, thank you, Layli. So we'll start with the work in progress in Bishkek. So fingers crossed. Again, the URLs will be dropped in the chat. But here we go.
Минутка мандраж у нас. Не очень страшно. Меня стресс нормально.
Wonderful. So that was just a teaser of some of the amazing work that's going on with the Magic of Theatre. And as you saw, the theatre's director, Nurlan, who doesn't speak English, is hopefully at the bottom of your screen. If you want to give a wave to everyone, Nurlan, you're famous now because you appeared in that video, just so we can see you and honour and respect all the work that you do with your theatre company. It's quite phenomenal. So Amy and myself, Amy, the project manager for MAP, we were very fortunate to have a trip in May and actually witnessed that work in progress. And we also were lucky to witness this other tech performance, the hunter that Layli was talking about, seeking these sheep. So the girl you see at the start of the performance is part of the flock of sheep. And there's a hunter and wolves. So I'll let you watch the second performance and see if you get a sense of the story in this. Here we go. It was quite something to watch that performance, which was in a barn that's being developed into a theatre in a school outside of Bishkek. So we hope that you enjoyed watching those. I'm gonna now see. Yes, okay, so we can move on to any challenges and learning, Layli, please, for the Magic of Theatre.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, I just would like to add a couple of words to the video from Tactica working process. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear this girl's monologue. She's very expressive, so I'm sure that the performance will be great. And unfortunately, I can't really experience it. Also, the Bishkek group will be having a performance on June 18th. So yeah, and we had some challenges, especially when some children were quitting the project, or like students were studying and working at the same time, which didn't allow them to fully participate in the project, and some of them unfortunately left. Team members learned from this how to actually audition each 3 months new participants, and it helped. Actually, it worked. it was quite unstable. The schedule was unstable because some children had other like scheduled conflicts. They had some sort of activities, and it was quite a challenge to manage the schedule for everybody, because in each group there are around like 15 20 participants. So it was a little bit difficult. Also, some well, especially in Bishkek, which is interesting, children were quite shy before, and they experienced some stage fright, which is normal. And it was also very interesting to see them developing their public speaking skill, and how they were able to manage their emotional mood, and how they were able to step over the stage fright. Now I asked my father, and he told me it's not happening anymore. Children are very comfortable. They're very they're fully participating, and they really love what they're doing, which is great. So yeah, there was I think there was a great that was also one of the main goals, and one of the really good achievements. So here, how you can be in touch. I also added my email in case to help my dad with translation. So, and please follow us on Instagram. Also have the page, and yeah, so I think it's all good.
Great, thank you so much, Layli. I think that's a really nice snapshot, and thank you very much for speaking on behalf of Nerlan as well. So now we open up to questions. Again, if anyone wants to jump on screen, you're most welcome to stick up your electronic hand, or we can go straight to the Zoom chat. And Vina, wonderful Vina, if you've managed to find any questions buried in there.
Yeah, thank you, Sora, and thank you, Layli. We have no questions at the moment, but we have comment from Michelle. Michelle say it's so powerful for children to find that level of confidence and strength within themselves. So yeah, if there are more questions, feel free to put in the chat, or just give your hands up.
Yeah, well, don't worry if you're feeling a bit shy, because we've also got a dialogue session now, which might get your juices flowing. So one last opportunity if anyone had a burning question or reflection, thank you, Michelle, that you wanted to share now. We'll move on. Okay, so now we're going to change into a slightly different part of the webinar today. And here we're really interested in exploring the comparative aspects of how the different art forms can contribute to social change. So we're going to invite the presenters back, and we're going to ask them some questions for them to respond to. But equally, as we're very interested in the nature of dialogue and what dialogue is as part of MAP, we will then be inviting the presenters to ask each other's questions. So we're quite happy to open up how the shape and form of dialogue can happen. And equally, after I've asked them the initial questions, feel free to experiment with us. So this section is looking at finding the similarities and differences across the three projects. So if we're thinking about adaptations, so adaptations to the original cultural forms that have happened, the first question to put to the three project teams, are what adaptations to the cultural form that you work with, if any, have been necessary to meet the aims of the MAP project? So what adaptations, if any, to those cultural forms? So I'd like to invite perhaps Simon and the Dauda folklore.
Saya mengundang Simon dan
Мы хотели бы вернуться
Romero.
Beginning phase of exploring here. So for me, this bit is particularly interesting because I want to see how other people have adapted the forms that they worked with and see how other people particularly have worked around the areas of influencing policy as well, which are the two tricky areas of the project for us. But I suppose in terms of adaptations, I think what we're trying to do is it's the challenge of bringing somebody from one place to another place in terms of geography for one, in terms of the kind of central policy area is in Kathmandu. And if we want people to be engaged, we're going to have to bring people to Kathmandu, which we've already done. But I think in terms of the form, as you can see, the form can be quite a large scale form as well. And how that then enacts when you're dealing with policy side of things as well is something that we have to think through quite carefully. And whether we bring the policymakers to the art form, I think is one of the ways that we've been discussing, looking at what we could actually do. So I'd be very interested to see how other colleagues have adapted their form to meet the aims around MAP as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Simon. Kiki, I wonder if you've got any reflections and building on from what Simon has said.
I mean, the projects really fit in the program, in the aims of MAP projects, because it's about the curriculum. And we find that taking advantage of the strong gender policy we have in Rwanda and the innovation that was made by women drummers and taking that project in schools to scale up the project really fit in the project, but gave also other opportunities. We have been dreaming of bringing together those hundreds of girls in a platform, and it was possible with the project of MAP, and it helps acquire it really reinforced the project. We acquired teaching materials we didn't have before. We brought the teachers on board. It's really strengthened the projects that was traveling since 2019. So no, we didn't have to make any adaptation, but I recognize that I've been afraid to talk to the same authorities that were not validating our work. And somehow I didn't want to have this conversation previously. And it's only because of MAP project that I say, okay, maybe let's have the conversation and see. And I'm really happy that this is happening. And somehow and listening to the advisor, to the mayor saying that it is important. I hope that the next authorities we will be talking with at the provincial level, at the national level, will continue saying the same thing and help really reinforce the curriculum, music, music, dance, and drama in schools, using also our initiatives and making sure that it's gender responsive.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. And really picking up on the sense of joy and pride. You use those very powerful emotive words that art forms seem to be able to bring into the curriculum. That really came through with your work, so thank you. Layli, I don't know if you or Nurlan had any response to this question of adaptations to the epics, the Manus, your form of theatre that you might have had to make to fit the aims of the MAP project.
I know about Manus in particular because it's such a big epic. But yes, this the Taktike show actually is adaptation of this, the large epic storytelling about this hunter. And actually I was just about to give you back, Ananda, about your wonderful ideas, how to also include these questions to the audience about caring and promoting the humanity values, and the questions about deep meanings of this epic storytelling. And this actually, this one is an adaptation for children, especially. So.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. So I thought what I'm going to do for this next question is allow the three projects, if you've got a sense of any similarities and or differences you can see with the other research projects in terms of how their cultural forms are generating social change. So did you see any difference or contradiction with what you're doing, or did you actually go, oh, that actually resonates with the work that I'm doing with my cultural form? I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so that we can also just see everyone else that's out there in terms of dialogue. If you want to go into your camera mode so we can have dialogue with faces. So if any of the audience want to come on camera so we get a sense of all of you out there, wonderful, and the wider project teams, please do put on your cameras now. Lovely. Yeah, just so we start to get a sense of our presence. Oh, look at this. This is great. Oh, fabulous. Look at this. All of the wider project team, some people as well from outside of the project. Fabulous. Great. So the question here, and we'll start back with the Dauda Folklore Project, was, were there any similarities or differences that you noticed with the other projects in how their cultural forms were generating social change? Let's start with Simon, Na, and Dila.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, something that was very strong was the area around gender and around female empowerment. And I think one of our early findings in looking at Dauda, you can see that it has a particular resonance with women. And I think as we move forward through the research project, I think there's a real strong similarity there with some of the other projects in terms of how that then is being embedded into the curriculum, how it's been used to empower women to make art for women, which I really like that bit as well. I thought that was very strong instead of male-made art. And it is quite unusual, Dauda, within the context of Nepal, I think, because of the way that it does give women voice as well. So for me, this is a strand, seeing this in the other projects as well, which is going to lead me and the team to look at this area much more strongly and adapt that as we move forward to the policy and the curriculum embedding work as well.
Great, thank you much, Simon. Na or Dila, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, maybe a little on the dissimilarities. What Dauda differs with the two forms of the art forms that were shown earlier by two colleagues. In theater, there are some mechanics that you can teach the people. Like in one drum per child or per girl can also be one of the forms that has a set to be easily taught to the classrooms or can be trained to the new generation. But in our case, I see a dissimilar aspect where Dauda cannot be taught. This is a poetry in rhyme, in rhythm. This is such a instant skill with the artists, and then of hundreds or thousand, among 100,000 people, there would be one singer who can instantly make such poetry to command the whole audience and inspire them. So with his or her demise, the whole cultural gap is going to be a huge tragedy for us. That is the dissimilarity I can see. So to preserve that particular art, if that can be at least transferred to the new generation in at least some part, I think that is what we have to work on.
Yeah, Thank you, Dila. And perhaps Kiki, it's a good time to invite your response to that question, having heard how Dila perceived your One Drum, One Girl project in relation to Dauda. Over to you.
Yes, no, I believe that for myself, I believe that there is no real change that is not cultural, that is not in the arts. The culture is the way we grow ourselves also. It's about the way we perceive ourselves. And if there are injustice and inequalities in the culture, it will be reflected in all the aspects of the society. So I think the most common thing that we have is using the arts and to project a society, to imagine a new society that is better. So for me, it has to be on the cultural ground. If the culture remain the same, because this is how our traditions works, and we don't want to change that. We as artists, we bring that culture and we grow it in the society, and it will reflect the inequalities, the differences, and the conflicts. So I believe that we have to find way to make change in the culture. Really, now I've shifted from using art to make change in other areas I am in. We have to change this culture that is not always friendly to everyone, and in our case to women. So that will be my say. So using the artistic tools to imagine a new world, a new things. I think this is it's only in the arts that can happen, and proving or showing that change is possible. And picturing, I think we have also a project about picturing something, picturing the world we want to make it more concrete. It starts for me in the culture, and it is great that people are using are going in their terroir, in their cultural language, you know. When in Rwanda it is possible for a girl to play a guitar.
Begitu dimungkinkan untuk anak perempuan bermain.
Для девушек.
ठिक छ तर ड्रम बजाउनु चाहिँ
To change the mind of the people and our own mind, because sometimes also we as artists and cultural makers, we are reluctant to change.
Yeah, thank you, Kiki.
If I could come back on that, I think one of the central things that our project is looking at is about how people imagine themselves and how they imagine their culture, and how art can actually create and change social imaginaries as well. So I think what colleague was just saying then is right at the heart for me about why we're involved in these particular projects. It's about what art and cultural practice can do to change your internal shape, your internal mechanisms, how you imagine the world. But alongside that then enables us to change with other people and change structures as well. But it starts with the internal imagining that you can have another life, and another life is possible, as the Brazilians always say. You know, another world is possible, but you have to imagine another world. And I think the big, strong theme across all of this work is around how art enables us to imagine a completely different world. And I see that in Dura as well. So even though I agree with Nar in terms of the dissimilar nature of some of the art forms, the central tenet of enabling social and internal change through art is the real strength.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. That was very powerfully put. And thank you for bringing back the internal change alongside the social change. That's a really important point in terms of our peace building ways of conceiving of it. I wonder now if I invite it to anyone in the audience, if you have a question that you want to ask to anyone that's on camera now, following on from this comparative aspect. So I open the floor. Please put your hand up, either physically or virtually. or indeed if questions are not what's bubbling up, but rather reflection. Yeah, Michelle, reflections are most welcome. Michelle.
It is actually a question, and forgive me if this is at present my lack of full understanding of the Duda form, but I was just curious. So the songs and this kind of question format that's part of that, is that something that evolves over time, you know, so that the questions that get asked become really contemporary in terms of their concerns? Or is it still grounded in existing songs from folklore? I think that was the thing that I still haven't quite understood.
I'll let Dilla, who's much more of an expert in this area than me, answer more fully. But one of the great interesting things is that contemporary themes are brought into this. So Dilla earlier mentioned problems around drugs. There's also problems around HIV and AIDS as well, particularly across the northern border with India. And that is permeating the form as well. So it becomes much more of an alive. If I can, the way I stupidly perhaps imagined what this looked like was I spent a lot of time working in hip hop. If you've ever worked in hip hop, you'll know about a kind of MC battles where people will go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's very, very similar to how this happens. I mean, there's loads of things that is not similar to hip hop like at all, but the idea of a discourse, the idea of a question and a response. And Dilla said, you know, it's framed within this fantastic poetic resonance as well and form, but it's still about contemporary problems, challenges. And as the clip, it didn't come through very clearly, but the bit about somebody challenging somebody over, you know, you're a gambler, you're selling all of our stuff. What's going on here? You know, we need to talk about this. You need to stop doing this type of stuff. So for me, that's why it had much more of a kind of, as I said, a resonance with forms like hip hop, which is at its best, is about having a discourse with somebody using a rhythmic form to enable that to happen.
That's incredible to have a folk tradition that has that capacity for improvisation and constant evolving. It's amazing, really powerful project.
Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Was there anyone else that had a reflection or just wanted to share?
Chest is having his hands up.
Where's Chast? Sorry, I can't see Chast. Lovely, Chast, please, we'd love to hear from you. Hello, welcome. Chast is working on several of our Rwandan projects. Chast, over to you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed hearing your presenters. Really, it's amazing work. We are making changes of lives of people. The question I have is a little bit related to how can we extend what we are doing and how we can make it more sustainable. And I was asking how really all we are doing should be translated into knowledge that can be integrated in the curriculums, in either informal or formal education. I was really hearing what Kiki is doing. It's amazing in Rwanda, and I know gender issues is very important, and is now being even educated in schools, and it's a kind of cross-cutting topic within all courses in our education system, and I think even in the other countries, the issue we are tackling. So I was asking really what's planned to make it really something that can be educated to young people and to our next generation. That's my reflection question.
Thank you so much, Chas. Did anyone have an initial response to that?
Yes, let me jump on that.
Go for it, Kiki.
Yes, one of the the tools we want to use so that it's sustainable. It's pairing the teachers in schools is making sure that whenever we won't be able to go back there, we have teachers that we will keep on with those workshops. And we are also working on videos, classes of the drumming, the juggling, and all the activities so that they can be available online, and any kids from any part of the world of the country can access them and work on that. In fact, I am in New York now with 8 drummers, and this is what we are doing. We are sending teaching videos to the teachers in schools, and they are making sure that they are teaching when we are not there, and sending pictures, photos, and videos of the workshops so that the work continue without necessarily us. So I believe that this can be one way to make the project sustainable, and we hope that by the time we meet with the Ministry of Education, we can find ways to see how to introduce that in several schools in Rwanda, and working with other artists in every district or any province so that they deliver that. This can be also something good for the artists to become trainers and earn other income. Most of the time we go in bars when there are so many schools where we can go and make it sustainable for both of us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I've just had a sneaky peek back at the time, so unfortunately, I think for our dialogue, we'll have to start to wrap it up and just have a few closing remarks. But thank you so much to everybody for joining in the conversation, and also for experimenting with us, different forms of dialogue online as we go through these webinars. So we will be reflecting on this part of the webinar, but also do send us feedback if you've got ideas for how we can extend and experiment further. So I'm just going to put online back our final closing. She says very optimistically. Yeah, okay, slides. So we're going to come back. You don't want to move. I think my computer has just become so overcome with all the fantastic comments. Yeah, it's okay. Yay. So over to Ananda now, just to give us a few closing remarks on today's webinar. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you all so much. And thank you to our speakers. Also, thank you very much, Sarah and Juhi, for your facilitation and chairing the event and preparation for today, alongside Vina and Kula behind the scenes, managing the chat, and Amy as well, who has supported this event as the project manager, alongside our MAP team and all of you as far as our MAP community. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey and for enabling this change, because as has been noted, it's the longevity of change that we're looking at, and the durational element of change, and change in terms of looking at cultures change is a part of that, which was the main theme of today. So some of the things that I wanted to pick up on from today that seemed to really stand out to me was the importance of skill building. So that was a part of most of the presentations were related to understanding the form itself. So the historic roots of the form, how power relates to the form in terms of perhaps thinking about gender or age or region, but thinking about the history of those forms, and how, as we engage with those forms, are we reigniting the form in some way, perhaps to shift it and adapt it to enable that form to be a powerful tool to create positive change. So that really stood out to me, is the importance of skill building. Also, what was very present in today's conversation was how the art form enabled a kind of platform for children and young people to really engage with that cultural form and enable confidence, joy, expression, with a really strong platform to engage in a very embodied, kinesthetic way, and enabling varied spaces to become very alive in terms of how those spaces enable a particular kind of expression from the children and young people. Also, how this kind of change of culture and reactivation of the form also presented a kind of invitation. It seemed that there is a kind of surprise or a kind of curiosity that comes from the reactivation of the form that then enables a kind of change. And thinking about the use of the form in terms of creating this dialogue between children and young people and decision makers, that was very powerful. A couple of quotes from today, that the use of culture enables a kind of growth in society, that making change, it's necessary to have change in the culture itself or cultural form itself, and using local practices to change the mind of people. The locality and the context of it was quite important, as well as thinking of improvisation. So particular forms like Doida and Manas, they're actually contemporary cultural forms that are improvisatory. So it enables and invites individuals to also make changes through that improvisation, which I think is also quite exciting. So some of those are just some comments on what came out to me as particular themes.
Yeah.
To note that we also have a couple of exciting upcoming events. I don't know if Sarah or Veena, you want to comment on the Impact Week?
Sure, we can absolutely. So I think as Veena perhaps is the most involved in that, would you like to give a couple of words, Veena?
Yeah, thank you, Ananda, and thank you, Sarah. In July, in the mid of July, we are going to have a Map Impact Week. We are going to invite and open calls for MAP participants and stakeholders to share their experience and their MAP journey, to share about the impact that they have felt or seen through engaging in the MAP project. So yeah, at the moment we are sending out the open call, and if you'd like to take part, we'll be very grateful to have you in our MAP Impact Week. So thank you so much, and please keep in touch. We'll share that good news in a very soon time. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Veena. And then there's ways to connect via our newsletter, which you can subscribe to on our website. We've got blogs. We will be writing up a blog about this event, and we will try and put links to some of the videos as well, so that you've still got access to those. So please look out for that. The next webinar will be in September on revitalizing tradition to inform curriculum. So really looking at how curriculums through arts-based methods can or can't be transformed. And then we'll be our first pilot of our podcast series, will hopefully be coming out later this summer. There are ways to connect. And then finally, just to share a little bit of what's coming up, we've got our webinars. This is the first one. Different colleagues across the MAP network are contributing to a variety of international conferences. I know Kiki, Ananda and Rustam from our International Advisory Board will be in Ghana over the summer at a performance-related conference. We've got the Impact Week that Veena just mentioned, and our podcast starting. We have a roundtable, so we're looking at reimagining and disrupting roundtables formats with policymakers, and we're partnering with UNESCO Nepal to do that in September. And then we have the publication of our Children, Youth and Participatory Arts for Peace Building book, hopefully in December. So hopefully lots for people to engage with and find out more. Finally, just a big thank you. So a thank you to everyone that's participated. It's been a wonderful explosion of sound, colour, ideas, and many thanks to all of you. And that's a snapshot of some of the people that are involved and engaged in MAP. So thank you very much. Perhaps I'll just come off screen and we can all come on. Those that want to come on camera can come on camera. And then we can all do a big wave goodbye. So nice to see you. Goodbye. Bye, everyone. Wonderful. We're still coming on.
Thank you, everybody. Can I just give a huge thanks to our interpreters as well, who have been very busy behind the scenes and supporting us with communicating our fantastic work of colleagues across multiple languages. So a huge thanks to you. We very much appreciate your continued support. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.